All right, everybody. Oldest left me like 0 times, so we're going to truck through this really fast. The good news is that I knew that I was going to be on today at 3 o'clock, and that's like the next to the last slot before everybody goes home. So I'm going to keep the presentation light, and it's not the super complicated how do you sync up 2 data centers with blah, 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 blah. It's not CAPS, man. It's something a little more simplistic. So yeah, it'll be fun and all exciting at the same time. So when they first told me that I was going to be the next to the last person today, I thought, this could be thought about 2 ways. If I had a big ego, I could say, well, they're hoping that I'll make people stay around. But I think the reality is that they wanted to reduce the number of people to reduce my embarrassment. So, either way, it works out fine for me. So a little about me, if you don't know me already, I'm Steve Discher. I'm from College Station, Texas. Class of '87, woo! Texas Aggies, home of Johnny Football, who, yeah, all right, we'll leave it at that. I'm a MikroTik certified trainer. I teach RouterOS classes, learnmikrotik.com, mywistraining.com. Those are my 2 sites. And I have a wireless distribution company called ISP Supplies. And I had way too much coffee, so I'll try and chill out a little bit. Congratulations to 13 new MikroTik certified network associates that I worked with earlier this week. So I want to give them a shout out while we're here today. So I'm going to be talking about common mistakes today. And mistakes are those things that tend to keep us up at night, whether it's mistakes in our network or mistakes in the way that we handle our customers. They can definitely haunt us. So I want to start off with something a little bit lighter. This is a support call that I'll try and mic out off of my computer here. We'll see how this goes.
Let's call here, and the girl helped me, and I tried to get on the internet, and it said server cannot be established.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Blasted the computer off the wall and just throw it out the window.
Okay. Let's just do that then. Have a nice day.
All right, so let's be honest here. How many times have you wanted to say that? Yeah. I don't have it recorded, and I probably shouldn't tell the story, but when I was first starting my WISP, it was living dollar to dollar, and I often did tech support via cell phone, and I hope my wife isn't watching right now because she'll really be unhappy with me telling the story, but one morning my phone was ringing, and I was doing my business, and she brought me the phone to the bathroom. I'm like, Wixon Wireless, how can I help you? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, well, let's leave it at that. So that's a mistake. Don't do tech support from the bathroom. Okay. So we're going to talk about 2 things today. One is common mistakes and simple solutions. And these are things that, if you're a seasoned veteran, you already know about this stuff, right? If you're fairly new to RouterOS, you may or may not know about some of these things. So hopefully in the process, maybe there's a nugget of wisdom for you old timers, and for the new guys, there'll be some things to get your tail out of the crack. The second thing I'm going to talk about is our configuration tool. We showed it to you first last year, and we've done some development on it now, and it's ready to go, and we'll turn it loose for you to use today. So first is common errors, and I'll go through 6 different common errors. And somebody that worked for me pointed out, he goes, oh, the number 6 again, huh? I go, yeah. He goes, well, every job you've ever had was for 6 years. You realize that, right? I go, yeah. He goes, you got 6 points in your topic today. You've noticed that too, right? I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to dig any deeper because I might freak myself out. But number 1 here is new router, fresh out of the box, and you can't connect to the router on Ethernet 1. I know it's happened to you.
It just happened in the last week.
There you go. We'll talk about why. Number 2, you're working in Winbox via the MAC address. You make lots of changes, you start looking at the config, they're gone. Where did they go? And the thing constantly disconnects. We'll talk about why. Number 3, and Tom touched on this a little bit, accidentally creating an open DNS server. All right, it will happen to you, and it can happen very easily. Been there, done that. Accidentally creating an open web proxy, that's the one that will get you in even more trouble, I think. Not disabling the default forwarding on your wireless interface, which is on by default, and I'll show you what that will do for you. And then finally, leaving the wireless protocol set to any or unsupported on an access point and thinking that you're using NV2. So we'll talk about that also. So the first problem is a brand new router. The PoE input is typically on Ethernet 1, I guess it always is. So you connect up a PoE adapter you've got on your desk into Ethernet 1, connect the cable to your laptop, and you don't see anything on Mac Winbox. It must be a bad router. So you RMA it to me. I get it back, there's nothing wrong with it, okay? The solution is that by default, there is a firewall on Ethernet 1, and they've also disabled the Mac Winbox protocol discovery on Ethernet 1. So easiest solution, use Ethernet 2, 3, 4, etc., and I bet the router will work for you just fine. Here's the reason you can't connect. The default firewall rules, the one in yellow here is the one that's getting you into trouble. And it says on the input chain, if traffic comes in interface Ethernet 1, we're going to drop that traffic. So that's what's happening to your Winbox and why it's not working. The other thing that's getting you into trouble is that by default, the IP neighbors discovery protocol is turned off on Ethernet 1. So that's what that X means. If you're not normally using the CLI, that's what you would see though if you did. So if you want to know each model of router that MikroTik makes and what the default configuration looks like, there's the link to the wiki page, and there's a chart on that page with all the models they make, telling you what each of the default configurations looks like. So that may be helpful for you. Number 2, changes made in Winbox are lost. It's constantly disconnecting and driving you crazy. Solution? Only use Mac Winbox to get an IP configured on the device. After that, you should be logging in through the layer 3 IP address. And that's just a recommendation overall. Mac Winbox is an emergency matter. It's something to get you in quickly. If you're using it all the time, you may have mixed mileage or mixed results. If you're constantly having disconnects, check your MTU size. I've seen some programs that install themselves on PCs that change the MTU size on the interface to something less than 1500, and that will cause you to get problems with Winbox especially. So check that out. Number 3, you accidentally created an open DNS server. How would you know? You get an email, a nasty email. And somebody over here in the front row, please don't read that too close because you'll see who the email was to. It's a common acquaintance of ours. Yeah. So anyway, you get this email. Believe me, these providers are actively scanning all of their connections, looking for open DNS servers. So how does it happen? Well, RouterOS has a neat feature called IP DNS caching, or IP DNS allow remote request, is what it actually says in Winbox. So what that does for you is allows the router to act as a caching DNS server. If it has the DNS request locally, it serves it from cache. If it doesn't, it does a lookup, and it gets it from an authoritative DNS server. The problem is that when you tell it allow remote request, it will respond on all ports of the router, especially the one facing your internet provider. So what do you do about that? Well, you firewall it, and if you haven't removed the default config, then it's pretty simple to do. Just create a firewall rule. The action is going to be dropped. The chain is input, and the in interface is whatever faces your internet provider. That's a less specific way to do it. A more specific way would be to block it by protocol and port. Either way will work, but in each of these instances, I'll show you a couple of different ways to do it. So why does it matter? What's the threat? Well, I think Tom covered it pretty well, and that is that open DNS servers can be used to launch DDoS attacks. So what the hacker does is he sends a DNS request, and the reply to address is going to be the IP address of the host that he wants to attack. And thousands of DNS requests later, you have a multi-gigabit flood of DNS replies. Number 4, forgetting a firewall rule for web proxy. Okay? Don't lie, you've done it, I've done it. Okay, I did it in Afghanistan for a guy who had like a 1 meg satellite connection. And within 15 minutes, he had a no meg satellite connection. So they will find you, they will hunt you down, and they will use your web proxy to do naughty things. All right? I did write down a few of the websites that he was browsing to. All right. Web proxy, what does it do? If you're not familiar with web proxy, it can speed up web browsing by caching pages in the router's memory or onto disk. So that way the next person that wants to see that page, they either get it served from memory or they get it from the disk. So it can speed up your internet connection. It also provides some other added benefits like HTTP firewalling, blocking, or redirecting certain sites based on rules. So that's what web proxy does. The only problem is that it's extremely simple to even accidentally enable. It's under IP web proxy, and on the general tab, the only thing you do is check enable, and now it's running on port 8080 by default. And it's also available on all ports of the router. So if you turn on web proxy and you don't have a firewall in place, your web proxy can and will be used for illegal activities.
Those fellas also like the SOX proxy.
The what?
Those fellas also like the SOX proxy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Anything that can be used and used for free, they're going to try to do that. So what do you do if you forget to put on a firewall rule for web proxy, or you don't have any firewall at all and you need to take care of web proxy? Simply create a rule that will protect your proxy server. It can be very specific or it can be less specific depending on the application. So here's a less specific one. This rule will protect you for anything coming in Ethernet 1. So web proxy, Winbox, nothing will get through Ethernet 1 with this rule. And if you want to be more specific, simply add in the protocol and the port as well as the input interface, and you'll be protected. Number 5, we're almost through the list, so hang in there. Number 5, not disabling default forwarding on the wireless interface. If you're not familiar with this setting, double click on your WLAN interface, look on the wireless tab down near the bottom, there's a checkbox that says default forwarding. By default, that is turned on. The problem with this is that in a WISP scenario, it can allow your subscribers, that is more than one subscriber on the same AP, to pass traffic freely between themselves and consume all your resources. So the first graphic here on the left shows what that kind of looks like. So house A and B are connected to the same AP. So if the kiddos there are savvy enough, they can pass data between those two homes freely without any regard for your firewall rules, rate limits, those kinds of things. So that's the default behavior of the wireless adapter. If you uncheck default forwarding, then all traffic has to pass through your layer 3 rules in your router. So that way they run through your rate limits and your firewall rules. The solution here, just disable default forwarding globally on the interface, or if you need to have it on for some devices, some stations, but not for others, you can use access list entries. So here's where it is on the interface to disable it globally, and that will do it for all clients. And then the more specific way is to use access list rules. So in this case, we've created an access list for 2 of our clients, and we've unchecked default forwarding on those 2 clients. And here's the one we've been looking for, number 6, the last one. Leaving the wireless protocol set to unspecified or to any on an AP. So I've run into this before. Customer calls and says, this MV2 thing, it really didn't help my network at all. I just don't think it works. And we take a look at their configuration. On all the station devices, they've got any or unspecified for the wireless protocol, which works fine. But on the AP, they also have any or unspecified. So if you leave it in that setting, the AP, in AP bridge mode, is only going to run 802.11. So leaving it in any or unspecified just makes it default to 802.11. So the solution, always select a wireless protocol on the AP. Don't select the one that says MV2 in-stream 802.11. Okay, pick one, only one, not a combination of 2 or 3. And if you look on the wiki, you'll see what the behavior of each of those settings is based upon being an AP or a station. And there you can see where it's highlighted. If you set it to any on an AP, it's just a regular 802.11 access point. So quick review, number 1, new router, fresh out of the box, can't connect to the router on Ethernet 1. What's the problem? You are still awake. Excellent. RMAs, that's right. Because we do not have enough RMAs in our warehouse, okay? Send us some more, we love them. Let's talk. Oh yeah, you and everybody else in the room. Number 2, changes made in Mac Winbox are lost, constant disconnects. 2 things to check. Number 1, make sure that you're logging in through the layer 3 IP address, preferably. If you need to use Mac Winbox and you're having problems, check the MTU size on your laptop's Ethernet. RMA the laptop. Put in the system restore disk and reformat your hard drive. I did put the disclaimer at the beginning, right? Number 3, accidentally creating open DNS server. Firewall rules, don't forget them. Or just turn off allow that remote request by default unless you're actually using it. Number 4, accidentally creating an open web proxy. Again, firewall rule. Number 5, don't forget uncheck default forwarding. If you don't need it, you probably don't. And the last one, make sure that you pick a wireless protocol. Don't go rogue and try and run 3 at once. It won't work. All right. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As far as the wireless protocol, we have had a couple cases where we wanted 802.11 clients, and they didn't connect in any, but they connect about 3 times faster